This is the Layover podcast, where your hosts Tracy Davis and Patrick Trevino share the unfiltered, behind-the-scenes stories of entrepreneurship. So sit back, grab a drink, and enjoy your flight. This is the Layover podcast.
I can't accept the loss, I'm hard-headed. There's a little bit of madness to my method. Many falling off that fine line that I'm treading. I risk anything to be great, and I'm not letting.
All right, guys, before we dive into today's episode, I've got to give a huge shout out to our sponsor, Flagship Facility Services. Now, you know how much I love talking about cleaner restrooms and cleaner spaces, and honestly, just spaces that are run beautifully and seamlessly. Well, that is exactly what Flagship does and who they are. They are the experts at keeping facilities running smoothly, whether that's cleaning, maintenance, culinary services, lab services, or just full-scale IFM, facility management services. They have over 35 years of experience, and they've been helping manage facilities in industries like tech, biotech, education, and then, of course, my favorite, aviation. But they don't just keep spaces clean, they create environments where you will actually want to visit. Not only that, but they care about their frontline workers in a way that's truly inspiring. So if you're looking for a partner to help support your building management so you can focus on what you do best, you've got to check out Flagship Facility Services. They're at flagshipinc.com, and we will link them in the show notes. So guys, a big thank you to Flagship for supporting the podcast and then making spaces better for everyone. So let's jump into this week's episode where we interview Courtney Wright, Senior Vice President of Sales for Flagship Facility Services. Now, I hope you've gotten the opportunity to meet Courtney because she is amazing, but if you haven't, her story is truly inspiring. So she joined Flagship in 2016, and she was completely new to the industry, right? She started as a business development representative, and jumping into the world of facility management and janitorial, let's be real, there are sexier industries out there, but that did not make her shy away. She took it by storm, and she was able to work her way up from a BDR to a senior VP, and still to this day, she is just making waves in the industry and in the organization. Courtney was able to take Flagship from 7 airports to 28 in just 7 years. I just want to let that sit in with y'all because for those of you who are from the aviation industry, you know just how difficult that is. So, props to Courtney because that is magic. But Courtney now currently leads, all the BNI and aviation sales teams. She is just constantly driving new opportunities, new marketing strategies. And guys, she is just a hell of a lot of fun to hang out with. So without further ado, I am excited to introduce Courtney Wright, and you guys are going to love the story that she has to tell. Thanks.
Courtney, welcome to the Layover podcast. It is long overdue. I know we've been talking about this for a year, but welcome. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
So, Courtney, tell us about who you are. What do you do? Who is Courtney?
Oh my gosh. Well, first and foremost, I'm a mom.
Very important. Number one.
To a 3-year-old little girl named Ella. Who gave me some advice when I told her I was nervous about being on
and
here.
What was that?
And she said, I love you, and gave me a virtual hug through FaceTime.
That eliminates all of the nerves at that point. Done. My nerves are gone too now.
And I'm a wife, which seems weird to say still, even years later. And I am Senior VP of Business Development for Flagship Facility Services.
I love it. And we have known you for how long? You've known Courtney for...
I say about 5-6 years.
5-6
Actually, this is our 5-year anniversary of you stalking me at the show.
Congratulations!
Anything to close the deal.
But you guys knew each other before Tracks, right?
No.
You met at
But
okay.
actually, I wasn't going to tell this story,
Oh,
but I'll
Lord.
tell it. But I actually saw Courtney for the first time ever on a bid walkthrough years ago when she decided to come to Manchester, New Hampshire.
Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah.
And
That's his playing ground.
yeah, I was like, who is this blonde coming to my playground? Like, girl, you're in the wrong neck of the woods. And then when she's like, oh, I'm from Texas. I was like,
That's how I sound.
yeah. I was like, you're a long ways from home there. But that's the first time I saw her. And you know what's so weird is I do full circle. And I was like, I'm going to be like, who is this person? Like, I have no chance in hell to try to be. And now I'm like, Courtney, Can I stalk you? Can I follow you
Please.
around? Can we do business
we have
together?
work?
The tables have turned.
The tables have turned. And then wait, who won Manchester?
Okay, Tracy.
We
got second place.
All right,
We got
too
second place.
All right, so tell us a little bit about Flagship. What is Flagship for those of who don't know?
Yeah. So we are a janitorial and facility maintenance company. Been around since 1988.
Dang, I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah, 35 years. So, and it was funny because my boss did a poll the other day of the marketing team, and it was like, who here was born after 1988? And I think it was everyone except for one or two people.
That's so sad.
So we were founded in Silicon Valley, and so we really grew up with a lot of those tech companies that started, in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
Every app you see on your phone, we've serviced them for a long time, and then really got into aviation probably 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I guess. We've had some of our Southern California airports for about 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And
wild.
then recently started a lab services side of the facilities services side as well. So facility services of lab services.
And you recently got a promotion.
I did.
That's so exciting. Congratulations.
It is. I think it's more than I bargained for, but thank you.
Yeah, you're going to have to tell us all the ins and outs, and we'll get into it for sure. But how did you get started into this world? Because it's a very niche, not a lot of people are like, I want to work in janitorial,
No.
right?
And in fact, I actually turned down Flagship 3 times.
No way.
wow.
True story. So I had a sales background. I did corporate relocation for a long time. And as I was coming out of that, that was very unsexy. And I
Right.
was like, I want to go sell pharma or medical devices
right.
or something really cool. And I got a call from a recruiter about this janitorial company. I'm like, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
What does that mean? I went in for the interview, and they said, well, we do, some high-end companies and, Samsung and Walmart and Facebook
Yeah.
and kind of
Lure you
name
in
dropped
with the
a little
brands,
bit. I'm
yep.
like, okay, maybe. And it was for a BDR role, and interviewed a couple of times. It actually was the 3-panel interview. It was my first interview in 10 years because I've been at my company since right out of college. Don Toole interviewed me, who is my boss now.
We love Don.
And I just walked away being like, I don't know. I'm not interested. They called
I don't like this guy.
yeah. This is going to be my boss. And actually, he was not going to be my boss. He was just another salesperson at the time.
Oh, no
Oh.
way.
And so they called. They offered me the job. I said, no thanks. I'm good where I'm at. I also changed. I'd been at my company for 10 years.
That's a
I still
big-
had that
yeah.
job. I was comfortable. I don't really
Were
want to
you
make that
looking,
change.
or it was just...
So I was looking. We had gotten purchased.
Yeah.
They had moved me from Houston, where I was living for 10 years after college, back up to Dallas, where I was from. So it was a
Right.
good move.
Yeah.
It made
Right.
sense. But I kind of saw the writing on the wall. The new owners weren't what I was used to. It wasn't really the family-owned business that I'd worked
Right.
for those 10 years. So I was starting to look and put feelers out, but doing it in a slow way, waiting
little,
for the right
ninja-like,
opportunity.
yeah.
And they called back again, and Flagship did, and I said, I just don't know. Let me come in one more time. I want to interview who is going to be my boss. That's important. And it was actually the VP of marketing at the time, which was kind of interesting that a salesperson was reporting to marketing. But interviewed him, seemed pretty low-key. And actually, Dawn was one of the ones who pushed for me and worked with the recruiter to kind of get the package in place. So they called for a third time, and I said, all right, I guess I better take this.
Fine, fuck it.
yeah, I guess.
So you
and here we
interviewed your potential boss. So that's actually unique. Not a lot of people go that extra mile to interview.
Really?
Yeah. We
I
don't...
feel like it's crucial.
No, it is very crucial, but we have a lot of interviews, and not a lot of people come back
They
and
don't
like, we
ask
want to
that.
go see the boss.
I interviewed with you.
And I
so-
scared the crap out of him. So.
Well, first you freaked me out because you gave me a hug, and I was like, "Why is this lady hugging me?"
Okay, it wasn't a formal interview. Just for the listeners, it wasn't like you were in the conference room and I gave you a hug. It was
No, we met at a
Nice to meet
restaurant.
you.
Yeah, we met at a restaurant, and it was a great restaurant, by the way. But we talked for like 4 hours, and actually, I think I'm the one who talked for 3 hours and 30 minutes.
That sounds right.
That
Yeah.
sounds about right.
I nodded and shook my head.
Yeah, and then it was almost like it was an interview.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But
it was
I
like a
interviewed
feeling.
with you, and then,
Yeah.
and then I interviewed with my other boss, which is our CFO.
Yeah.
And I mean, his is cut and dry. That took 5 minutes, and so. But other than that, yeah, I mean, I think it's
But
cool.
it's a lot of people don't do that. So
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, I think it's important. I mean, that person is making or break. I mean, your job and what you do is one thing, but having a boss that's not only a boss, but is truly a leader and a mentor and is helping navigate your career along with the actual day-to-day role is huge.
We're not talking about Dawn anymore, right?
Oh, no, absolutely not. Just these are just in general.
Okay, you were just doing like a job description of expectations.
Don, his head just got so big just now. I can see it from afar.
He won't even listen to this.
So I got a quick question. So I met you, formally met you. I think it was in Boston. It was at AAAE in Boston. I think it was.
Okay.
And I think you had your booth. I like how she doesn't even remember when she met me. She's just going with that. I could have said any city, any show. She
that guy that was following me around for a year. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, she's not paying attention to me. Like I'm giving her all the.
His ego was bruised.
And then I don't know how it happened. I think it was Tampa or an airport was coming out, and I think somehow we connected, or it could have been Nashville. It was one of those airports that came out. We connected, and then we just started. I guess she gave me time of her day, right? And I was like, hey, this is how the system would work. And then I give her credit. I don't give a bunch of people credit, but she took a chance in hearing me out, and then she brought that to everyone else, and then it kind of started snowballing. But she was the reason why we had the partnership with
you
Flagship.
still owe me that purse, by the way, for that.
I do.
I'm never going to let
and that's
you
now on
that.
record.
Yes.
So when you were interviewing, what role was that? Because you worked your way up.
Yeah,
right?
it was for a BDR,
Okay.
business development representative. So basically an inside salesperson. And it's funny because that role at Flagship has evolved so much along the way, along the last 8 years. And a lot of people think of inside sales and BDRs in different ways. You have your Smile Learn Dialers, you have canvassers, you have, really a strategic kind of salesperson that's outbound calling and researching and all of that. And it's funny because the role I started in and what the BDR is doing today has changed along the way, but we're actually going back kind of to the roots.
Interesting.
And that's something that is important to Dave is canvassing, going kind of boots on the ground, doing a lot of research.
Wow.
So that role is constantly evolving with Flagship as the needs of our customers change.
So you started to work your way up.
I did.
Because now you're the big boss.
I'm actually scared of her now.
You should be.
Gosh.
She can make or break you.
2 phone calls. I got no more business.
Make or break you.
I don't think it's 2 phone calls anymore.
What was that journey like?
So it was interesting. It's been fun. I think I really found my niche in aviation. And so I remember when I was a BDR and they had me going to some trade shows and trying to get, leads going and things like that. And they said, well, we've got these couple of airports. We had done airports for a long time. I think we had San Diego and John Wayne, Orlando and Tampa. So some pretty big recognizable airports. So, kind of the message was, well, let's not target airports. Let's go after kind of new sectors and new verticals that we don't really have a presence in. But we have to do these check the box places. And actually this was at John Wayne. And so I went to the trade show and I realized very quickly that we did not have the brand recognition that maybe we thought we did. In the airports outside of the 5 or 6 that we were currently servicing. And so I went to my boss, actually I went to Don, who is not my boss, and I said, I think there's been some miscommunication about what's happening, out there in the aviation world because people don't know us. And so we quickly realized, okay, we've got a great reference base here. We have these really good long-standing relationships and with San Diego and John Wayne, and let's figure out a way to kind of multiply what we've done there in Southern California across the country. And so, we worked on marketing, we worked on white papers, we worked on case studies, we partnered with companies like you guys, thinking about innovation and how to get in front of, what some of our big billion-dollar competitors were doing because we couldn't bring that to the table. So we had to be really strategic. We did a lot of trade shows. We still do a lot of trade shows.
We know the life.
But I think it was a good journey, and I'm very proud of. I was saying the other day, I have this I call it my airport Bible, and it's all the airports in the country, and who's doing the service now, and when is it going out to bid? And I was like, I sent it to somebody last week, Jenny, who you guys know, and I was like, this is my life's work. So
is this the same Bible that you use? Because did you just copy Courtney's?
No, but we talk every year, and we both go back to our Bibles and look at it.
Hers is probably more
organized and thoughtful and
accurate.
I don't think I even follow the lines. I write this way, then this way on there. But it's funny because that brings me back to times when I used to, and I'm sure when you were doing only selling, right? Where it's people nowadays don't realize all the hard work it took to when you had to do this manually, right? In the process. we get salespeople that now it's like, I can't work if I don't have this automated CRM that's talking to this, and I want automated messaging through marketing. And it's like, hey man, sometimes you can just pick up the phone and call the person.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I know that sounds crazy in today's age, but that's
Not
what we
our
used to do.
current team. This was previous
No,
team.
no,
I just
no,
want to.
no,
Yeah.
I'm not referencing like
Yeah.
our team at all.
Yeah.
I'm referencing just people in general.
The
Like,
mindset.
the
Yeah.
mindset is like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
going to sit down, I'm going to click, I never have to call someone. And during that period, you lose that relationship building.
1,000%.
Right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so both of you guys were once in sales roles, right? When you
Oh,
first came out of
100%,
college,
yeah.
and you were doing all this trying to
All
grow,
relationship
trying to grow
building,
Infax
yeah.
and those things. Like, they know Infax, but they didn't really know who Tracy was. I mean, granted, the bigger airports did because
Yeah.
you were going around with your dad and stuff,
Totally.
as being a family business, but you couldn't just walk into LaGuardia and say, hey, I'm Tracy Davis.
Right.
They're
Right.
like, who
Yeah.
are you?
Yeah. Totally.
They'll probably arrest you.
Get out of here. I am delightful. You're mixing these.
Well, you're going in there giving everybody hugs. They might arrest your ass for giving people hugs.
Yeah, the Northeast for
but
sure.
I think that brings back to, have you seen sales evolve? And even I say short period, but you've been at
Yeah.
Flagship for a
5 years,
while,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But from when you started at Flagship to what it is now, have you seen it evolve of how do you have to do sales?
1,000%. And we were just talking about this last week because we were putting our 2025 plans together for next year and working with the BDRs and how did the BDRs impact the sales reps. And, one of the things we were looking at was social selling. And when I started as a BDR, I had so much success on LinkedIn because if you think about 2016, 2017, LinkedIn wasn't new, but messaging was, and Sales
Yeah, the new
Navigator was, and
features,
you
yeah.
weren't getting bombarded that way like you were via email or phone call
Right.
at the time. So I had many companies, Volvo, Nissan, like huge Fortune 500
Wow.
companies that responded to a LinkedIn message.
That's wild.
Through Sales Nav.
Wow.
And, now I've got the BDRs telling me, well, it doesn't work like that anymore. and I understand it
Yeah,
doesn't. And
yeah.
so what's next, right?
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
things like Zoom Info, and
Yeah.
we still have Sales Nav as some type of selling tool. But yeah, it's evolved a ton with social media
Yeah.
and where people are getting their news and their information and what's important. So
Does it ever
it's
make you
changed a
guys
lot.
feel old?
1,000%.
Now when they're talking about social media, like we do a lot of social media, but it's evolving so quickly.
I
feel
am so offended right now. That one must have blew right by her head, but it didn't blow by mine. Calling me old?
I'm just saying it's tough to stay like when people are coming right out of college
Yeah.
and that's what they're actually studying. And when we went to college,
Right.
there was no major on digital marketing or social media. Like now there's majors solely focused.
When I went to college, I didn't even have a pen. Apparently, that's how old I am.
You're at a typewriter.
Yeah, I had typewriter. But I agree. No,
Yeah.
you're absolutely correct because you have a big marketing, a decent sized marketing team, right? And so you see people out of college and expectations. I don't know if that's even taught anymore the way we used to do marketing. And it's like
No.
adequate, and it changes so damn fast, right? And so marketing changes fast, and sales strategies change fast. But I still think, and I'll speak aviation because all
Yeah.
of us are familiar with aviation, is that everyone always wants to start a cleaning company. Think it's easy. People from operations think sales is easy. Sales thinks operations is easy. And then you come to realize they're both two very hard things
Yeah,
to do.
they are.
The sales cycle to sell janitorial services, forget aviation. Aviation, it takes like 5 years, right?
Yeah, it's tough.
But to sell like an actual service, soft service, or janitorial services, it takes a lot of
takes
work.
Yeah.
It's not like you have one meeting and you're selling a microphone.
Yeah.
Right.
We're not. You are selling a service for sometimes millions of dollars,
Right.
and you have to influence
A lot of people.
a lot of people to make this decision, and then the cost of writing your proposals and your submittals.
Well, was there a learning curve for you because you didn't come from janitorial? So
Oh, yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a lot to learn.
There was a big learning curve, and I think that's why it was so cool to kind of see that progression, and that's what I try to instill in the BDRs
Yeah.
now is read every proposal you can, participate in every capabilities presentation,
Yeah.
jump on every meeting that you're scheduling for that sales rep because that's where you're going to learn.
Yep.
You just have to do it,
Yeah.
and as you do it, you pick up things and you hear, and then, oh, you heard that in that meeting,
Yeah.
and then when you pick up the phone to do a cold call, you remember that little tidbit, and you say that to the next customer, and that generates a meeting, and so it's just kind of building and building,
Yeah.
until you become educated enough to feel like, hey,
I'm
could
an
go out
expert
and do
here.
this,
Yeah, I
and,
can do
and
it,
I
yeah.
could go be in front of a customer
Totally.
by myself.
But I feel that in this day and age, people want to bypass that effort, and they want it automated.
Yeah.
They want an AI that they're going to say, like, oh, I read the description of this company. They're Fortune 500. They do the X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 blah. But you don't get that connection. Like you're not researching, right? Same thing with us, right? We sell technology in the janitorial space. If we don't know how janitorials operate, then what are we selling?
Right.
How are we selling?
Yeah.
Right? There needs to be a type of relationship between understanding both. I'm not giving away our secrets or anything, but I tell our teams the same thing. Know your customer, but know how they operate too, right?
Yep.
It's not just knowing, let's say, Flagship, just to know Flagship and know Courtney. It's, have you gone to the same bids that they've been on? Have you looked at the RFPs that they're bidding on? How are people responding to these things?
You got to do your homework.
You got to do the homework.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many BDRs do you currently have underneath
Gosh. Well, so they're a dotted line right now. So we
Okay.
have a new VP of Marketing and Sales
Okay.
Enablement. And so it's a dotted line between her and I
Okay.
on the BDRs,
Okay.
which is nice because, they interact with marketing so much
Absolutely.
and helping, with the content team create the content for the sequences
Yeah.
and getting white papers written and working with the presentation and creative team on generating these capabilities
Right.
presentations. So it's a good dotted line, I think, with kind of the sales expertise and the marketing expertise to tie together.
you? But did you have management experience prior?
To Flagship, I did.
Okay.
I managed an inside sales team
Okay.
at Grable, which was the company I worked
Gotcha.
for before for a
Okay.
little bit.
Yeah, because I'm curious. No, you're good. I'm curious as to realistically, like your leadership style, because everyone has a different leadership style. God knows, me and Pat's leadership styles
We
couldn't
don't have to talk about that.
we couldn't be any different. More
Polar
different.
opposites, completely.
But what is your style? Like, how do you lead your team?
It varies by person.
That's a good answer.
And I'm still learning that. And one of the things, it's interesting when you go, it's easy when you come in as that position,
Yeah.
right? Or someone's
Yeah.
hired and they just kind of know you as that leader. It's interesting when you go from peers to then now being in charge of that person. And it's a new dynamic, quite frankly, for
Yeah.
me with several members of my team that I'm having
Sure.
to navigate, and everybody has a different opinion about it,
Absolutely.
whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
And, I think part of what I'm trying to do is we've grown so quickly as a company.
Yeah.
And, Dawn, who is now a chief revenue officer with us, needs to be focused on way bigger
Sure.
and more crucial things to driving revenue to the company than, say, revamping our capabilities presentations
Right.
or looking at everyone's proposals. And I had a conversation with, one of the sales reps on the team a few weeks ago. I'm not trying to be a micromanager. I just want to understand your
Yeah.
process because it looks much different in B&I
Yeah.
or education than it does on the aviation
Absolutely.
side. And I'm learning. I've done a little bit of everything, but I'm certainly not an expert
Sure.
in that side. And, we've been fairly segmented, kind of California does their thing and
Yeah.
aviation does their thing and lab services does their thing. And so it'll be nice to get some processes
Sure.
and workflows and consistency in place. And I think that's part
Yeah.
of why I was put in this position, is to kind of
To
help
bring
drive some of that.
the foundation to it. I mean, from a leadership standpoint, and Pat, I don't know if you want to talk about
I kind of want to bypass this topic.
he's uncomfortable. But
No, I'm just
he's
joking.
gone through similar scenarios, right? Where you came in and you worked your way up, and when he initially had peers, now there's a lot of people that are the whole company reports
Right.
up to him. So it's a learning curve, and you have
And
to
it's
adjust
still-
how you
yeah.
lead and adjust
and
how
I
you.
think it's a continuous learning
Yeah.
curve,
Yeah.
right? As more teams get bigger, right? More people bring in. It's more
Yep.
different personalities that come in. And it's a learning curve. And I mean, I pay a therapist a lot of money.
Yeah, well, can you give me that person's name? Because
No, she'll take hours away from me.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I honestly, when I think back on it, you and I recently had this conversation, but when I started, I was a lot younger, not tracks, but even just in the workforce, right? And a lot of our bosses were much older than us. But now, all us, we're leading peers. We're leading people that are of similar ages. And there's a lot of nuances that a lot of people don't take into account, that's actually very difficult. And I think it's a lot easier to manage someone who's much younger than
Right.
you versus someone your age or even older than you.
And that's so that adds a whole other element.
She's like, I'm gonna go
to
ahead and drink
now. And being a
Yeah.
woman in a primarily
Yeah.
male dominated industry, I will say, as a company, we have a lot of women in our sales
Yeah.
force, but specifically in the aviation side too, very very male dominated.
Yeah.
And so that's been kind of interesting.
I was gonna
as well.
say, what is your experience in that?
I was just going to ask that.
Ha, stole the question.
I've had a good experience. I think when I started, it was listen, corporate relocation in moving was also very male dominated. So it wasn't like I came
You weren't
from
shocked.
This,
yeah.
Yes, it was very similar in terms of the type of people that were, I was working with. So I'm used to walking in and being the only female in the room. To Pat's point, when he saw me in New Hampshire, I'm sure I still go to walkthroughs. And it's very rare that there's multiple women at an airport specifically walk through. I'm sure you know that too. Sometimes I like it because I'm like, you know what? Everyone's going to remember Flagship.
100%. She's like, I'm a bombshell blonde. She got it.
And, when we go to presentations, it's something we think about still to this day. And I hate to say it's important, but it is. It's important to have a female voice.
Absolutely.
And it's important to know who is your audience, because a lot of the times now we're not walking into a room full of men, and there's a purchasing person, or we're seeing a lot of airport directors that are women, and a lot of facility managers now that are becoming women. So to have kind of that peer, sitting across the table during a negotiation or during a presentation makes a huge difference. We're seeing all kind of different ages. A lot of these people are retiring. We have a whole new wave of people coming in this industry, and so I think there's ways to connect on that side as well.
Well, I have to say, so coming from like the women perspective on it, have you ever noticed women not necessarily encouraging other women in these roles, or do you have a different perspective where you feel like you've been uplifted?
I haven't, but I will say that I have, in my close to 20 years of work experience, never worked for a woman.
Oh, interesting.
I've never worked for a woman. I've had women report directly to me, and I would hope that they would say that I have been encouraging and uplifting and a good mentor and leader. And, Jenny, who you guys know, she's one of my greatest friends.
Yes.
We talk every day. We didn't talk yesterday. And she's like, what's
Are you
going
okay?
on?
Are you sick?
And so I would certainly hope that, people like her would say that. But, I've never reported to a woman.
That's really interesting.
And I would think that I would love it. Yeah. But I don't know.
Well, I mean, even just in the workplace, like at an airport, I've had experiences where the women that I was selling to were actually much more condescending and rude and shut down and like wouldn't give me the time of day, and then the men were actually more supportive in a professional way. Right. I don't know if you've ever seen anything like that, or you're like, I'm gonna exit this conversation.
I feel like none of these conversations. No, I agree. Listen, I will say, looking at it from a male's perspective, right? I have seen that. I've been in a room where I've had female colleagues do their part of the presentation. And I've seen females on the other side, like drill down on them as they're coming, and then somebody else goes and presents on the team, and they're just no questions, right, and move on, right? To me. I did have a question for both of you guys. Have you seen now business kind of evolve in a sense that women have more of a voice, and when they're presenting in sales, I'm just going to use sales because that's something all three of us have in common, is that. Do you feel like people are taking it more serious when you go up? Because I've heard stories from you. I've had scenarios of myself where someone's even questioned my age in the middle of a presentation. And he looked like Father Time, so I was going to ask him his age, right? But have you guys seen, and you don't have to say an airport or anything like that, but have you seen a shift now where now that there's more women in power, people are paying attention to this now, that it's gotten a lot easier to present?
What do you think?
And maybe easier is not the right term. Maybe.
So I think what happens, and Tracy, I'm sure you get this a lot, is my favorite thing in life is to be underestimated.
Hell yeah.
Because I love to walk in, and to your point, and I can think of a specific example, and I won't say it, but I walked in with a team of men, flagship men, to present at a board meeting, and the board consisted of men and women. But when I got up to start the presentation, everyone was shocked. That it was me that was reading and everyone had their voice, and of course, but and same thing. I mean, I'll sit in a room with a male colleague or even my boss, and when I start the presentation, it's like, oh, okay, we're going to refocus. No, I haven't seen like the disdain or the she's not competent, but it's just kind of that surprise at first, and that like, oh, we underestimated this person.
Absolutely, and that's empowering though. I mean, I love that little shock and awe. It's like, bam, I know facilities, I know operations, I know tech, where it's primarily male. So it's an interesting perspective, because I think on my side, I have experienced that disdain. I was at an airport. I'm not going to say which one. And I had been working previously with the airport director, the COO, like the top of the top, right? They became my friends, and I had known them for 10 years. So we had a rapport, we had a relationship, right? And I would walk into a meeting and I'd give them a hug because we already know that apparently I have a hugging problem that we've adjusted. But
the first step is acceptance.
But the woman in the room who was the new CIO at the time saw me have that relationship and immediately shut down and like wouldn't even look at me. I would talk to her. She would not even look at me, was like absolutely rude. And I think it was because I was friends with her boss. You know, I think there was something there. And so it was interesting on how to navigate that. I do think it's getting better. I think there's more women involved in the industries. And like you said, we're seeing familiar faces now, right? We're now seeing women in power, which changes the game a bit. So I don't know. We've all had those experiences. You?
I've had them too. I mean, being a minority, like we're always known as like, being, especially the janitorial side, right? They're like, oh, like, X, Y, and Z. Like, I don't want to get into too much of the details because we can have a separate podcast about that. But I always like to say, like, females are always known to have had the stereotype, should I say, you're HR. Of course you're the director of HR. Oh, of course you're the director of marketing.
Right.
But it's changing. I'm the CEO.
Yeah.
I'm the CFO now, right?
I once was mistaken for someone's administrative assistant.
Oh, no, absolutely not. That still happens to me. Yeah. That happens to me at Flagship.
They were like, oh, and I was in an office, and they walked in, it was like someone, they're like, oh, can you print this? Like, they thought that I was there working, and I was like, excuse me? I'm like, I own my company. I don't work here. Yeah. Like, it was, I didn't lose my shit because I'm more confident than that, but I thought about it for like 2.5 seconds.
I think inadvertently people still, especially older people, still revert back to, hey, can you take notes during this meeting?
Yeah. Oh,
sure, I can. I take great notes.
Do you know what's wild? I've actually witnessed something with her at a trade show. I had somebody come up and start talking to us, and it goes, made the assumption that I was the brains. I was the tech brain. And she was a salesperson. And so the person came up and we were talking and goes, all right, now let's talk technology. Let me talk to this. And literally came to me. And I remember I turned around, I was like, well, actually, I was like, she invented the product. It was her vision. And she actually is more technical than I am. You know, I'm just handsome. I didn't say the handsome part. I didn't. But I thought about saying it.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that.
And I remember being like, wow, that must feel, for her, that must feel uncomfortable. It's like, I built a multi-million-dollar company. This was my idea. I created this, and someone who just walks up immediately just
diminishes that.
that. I mean, like, that must be a shitty feeling, right? Like, not that you're going to
cry. No, I didn't.
But still,
I just didn't do business with them.
Yeah.
Well, and to me, I mean, I know how I would take it, and I feel like I know you enough to be like, that just fuels the fire
100%,
and makes it.
100%.
Yeah.
So over this past, and if we can get a little bit personal, over the past year, you're a new mom. Yeah. Not a new mom anymore.
No, she's 3.5.
That's so
I know.
wild.
Isn't that crazy?
I know.
What was that transition like? Because that was your first child, and you were already on your way to the top, right? You were already in executive positions when you...
Yeah, so I was a vice president when I had Ella, and it was tough for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still tough. She cried her eyes out this morning when I left. I travel a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I bring surprises.
Of course.
Toys. I would prefer a craft, is what she said today.
I love it.
So specific.
If anyone has a craft here, I need to get that. But yeah, I mean, it's been tough. I mean, it really takes a village.
Yeah.
Both of mine and my husband's families both live in the area. You know, she goes to school full time. My husband's a huge help. I mean, as he should be. The husband and her dad. But it's good. I mean, we have it down. I try to limit the travel as much as I can. You know, I'll do day trips, even if I kill myself going up and back. As many, we count everything by how many sleeps are you going to be gone. And so as much as I can limit the number of sleeps, I try. But I mean, I'll bring them along. You know, we have a show in Newport this summer, and so
fun.
I'm going to
Yeah.
take her, and we're going to go to Disney and
Do the whole thing.
So try and do, you know, family stuff on the road as it works out.
I mean, I think there's no such thing as balance. I think it's like it's a weird goal that we all strive for, but it's really hard to attain or even get close to. But how do you maintain your work and your life? Because I think it's inspirational to a lot of people who are in executive positions or, you know, business owners who aren't moms and want to be moms. And how do you do it all, right? When we're told that you can't.
Yeah, and, you know, I feel like you can.
I agree, but that's what we've always been told our whole life, you know?
I really feel like you can, and I feel like you have to have help.
100%.
And you have to ask for help when you need it.
Yep.
And there's times, and I look at my husband, and I'm like, you got to do bath tonight.
Yeah.
I got to finish my emails.
Yep.
You know, or, hey, I mean, last week we had a sales and marketing event. I was at dinner and event every night. That's not normal, but it just was a busier week than normal. But I really make it a priority, and, you know, Flagship's really good. If I'm like, hey, very rarely do I say no.
Yeah.
I can remember one time, and I cried telling Dawn no that I couldn't go to a presentation.
I told Tracy no, I cried too.
That's a bunch of bullshit.
I don't agree in crying at work, but I did. But because we had a family trip planned, and it had been planned for months and months, and a presentation came up, and you know, they were like, "Can you go?" And I said, "I can't. We'll help you rearrange your schedule. We'll do all this. We need you to be there." And I said, I'm prioritizing what's going to be important to me in 5 years is the memories of this trip with my family, and it's so important to my daughter. And I said no, and then, you know, Dawn actually called me back and said, I can't believe I asked you. I'm so sorry, because I was really upset, because I don't say no. I've said yes for 8 years that I've been there. So I think, you know, I do say yes probably more than I should, but I make it a priority. She has a Thanksgiving thing on Thursday. That's why I'm leaving tomorrow. You know, I could have stayed here 2 more days and done meetings and networked, and but it was a priority for me to get home for her little 20-minute Thanksgiving thing at school, and so I just try to navigate the best I can.
I mean, you have kids. I don't.
It's extremely it's extremely hard to juggle, and it's almost like sometimes you carry. Maybe you should. You agree with this? Well, sometimes you carry guilt because
1,000%.
the other person is having to pick up additional slack, right? Because they work too, right? And so they have to pick slack up. And then when you're out to dinner with a client, I don't know if this happens to you, but sometimes it happens to me a lot. I'm at dinner with this client, and in my head, like I'm physically there, but my mind is at home. It's like, wow, I'm having this dinner here. I should be home with my family. Was this dinner really warranted?
Worth it?
Right? You know.
Well, and I have guilt on the other end, too, because I like my job. So then I have guilt like, oh, I'm excited to go on this work trip.
Yeah.
I'm excited to go and have this walkthrough and, you know, get this. I also feel like it's really good for her to see me working.
I was just about to say that.
I mean, and then she'll emulate, you know.
Absolutely.
And she gets her notepad and she's like, I'm taking notes for my meeting, too.
My daughter does the same thing with the fake laptop.
Yeah.
That is so cute.
She'll just start typing too.
But you show them that it is possible.
Yes.
Like, it is possible to have all the things you want in life. And if that is a business, to work hard, like, you can have that all. And I think that's an important message that I think generationally, right, our parents and parents before, like the moms were always told that you can't work, you must stay home, right? And it had to slowly transition into it. And I think when you can finally lead by example and show happy parents successful in running.
I know that you don't have kids. You have
I've
dogs.
got a Milo. I mean, he's probably more work than
I feel like puppies are more work than
Just kidding.
Absolutely more work. But no, what I was going to say is that just like you're passionate with Flagship, I'm passionate with Trax.
Right.
So I do have a level of guilt that I'm like, can I just push this one off with the family to do this? Almost like you're torn between two families, right? And you don't want to disappoint. For me, like with Trax, I poured my heart and soul into the company. So for me, it's like I don't see it as a job.
Right.
I see it as in like I'm making change. I'm doing something bigger. And it's hard when you're trying to juggle family life.
Yeah, I can
it
imagine.
It really, truly is.
Yep.
And I can't say I'm like the guru at it. I mean, I got divorced, so, and I'm not blaming my job on it.
I don't know if we should laugh.
But what I'm getting to is that it's hard in life to juggle these things, right? And then still have a straight face, right? be at dinner and still crack jokes and the whole entire time, or you're thinking
about your family.
Yeah.
About your family, or your daughter's dance recital,
right?
Or the 17 things you got to do for your family when you land, right?
Yeah.
All those things come into mix. That's why we need a female president. And I'm not going on a rant, but that's why we need a female president. I'm telling you, things will get fixed.
Well, I was about to say, women can multitask better than.
And that's scientifically proven. That's not even.
Because our brains are bigger, or I just wasn't.
I don't want to go into anything with women bigger. Like bigger and women don't. I don't even want to go down that train. Don't try to set me up.
But to your point, I think if you can, I really try when I'm home and it's Ella time. Mm-hmm. I'm not, if I have to be in my office, I'm in my office. But if I'm playing with her, if we're at an event, if we're doing stuff at school, I'm with her.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not on my phone. I'm not saying just give mommy 1 second. Yeah. And if I'm at work, I'm at work. I trust that she's at school or with my husband or with my mom and that she's safe and doing what makes her happy. And so then that kind of, I'm able to let go a little bit. To your point, it's always in the back of your mind. But I've also made it a priority. Like, I'm not going to miss a dance recital. And if that means I have to say no, then I have to say no. And also, if we're to the point where me being there is making or breaking a deal, we have bigger issues at hand.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so you've been able to master, I put quotes around balance because I know it ebbs and flows, right? But you've been able to master this balance of being an incredible mom, because you are an amazing mom, and then also an incredible, is senior vice president, right? Which is awesome. Like, I wish I could sit here and clap right now, but I want to ruin the audio.
Somebody already did that.
We are at a trade show, so it is really loud. But what have been some unique challenges that you've experienced kind of going through this process of juggling being a mom, like literally climbing your way to the top, running teams now, it's a lot. So inevitably, I'm sure you've had some hiccups and challenges.
Yeah, I think one of the things is trying to get people to see me as more than just the BDR that I started as 8 years ago.
Right.
I struggled with this in my old job, in my last life when I started at 22 years old and worked my way up. And I think people always kind of saw that 22-year-old.
Yeah, for sure.
And I see that still a little bit. Not terrible, but I think I just feel like I'm constantly having to prove myself over and over, constantly being underestimated, which again I thrive off of. But I that's been a challenge. And I don't think that has anything to do with being a woman, or I think some of that, and it's interesting, and especially this new generation. I was just reading somewhere that you're doing yourself a disservice if you're staying in a job more than 2 years. And I've only had 2 jobs in my whole 20-year career almost. And so it's so interesting to me. And sometimes I wonder, am I doing myself a disservice? Could I be in a higher position or making more money? And then what does the work-life balance look like?
Yeah, what's the trade-off?
Is it worth it? And, I do have a family here at Flagship, know, and so I think that's probably been my biggest hurdle, is just trying to get people to see me now as this kind of strategic sales leader than who I was at 32 years old when I walked in the door knowing nothing about the business.
I mean, what do you do for that? So, Pat and I have talked about this, how presentation matters, how you present yourself, how you show up, on a day-to-day basis, like all those things impact the way that people view you. Is there something that you have done to help combat that, people questioning or thinking that's different?
I mean, not anything I can think off the top of my head. I mean, trying to, of course, always be professional, always show up when I say I'm going to. I think being well-dressed is important.
Yeah, we were just talking about that today.
Carrying yourself well, presenting yourself in a professional manner. I mean, we talk about trade shows. Pat gets mad at me sometimes. He's like, why are you going to bed? Why are you coming? I'm like, well, it's a small world.
Yeah. Well,
too many glasses of wine.
Yes.
And everybody talks about it for a long time. And I think that goes back to wanting to be seen as a professional and not as this kind of young woman entering, their career.
100%.
And so I think there's
Can you teach Pat that? Because I think we're still working on it.
In the industry, it's a lost cause.
Yeah. Pat threw that image out the door a long time ago.
Day one. That and probably a person I already get capped at a conference from my CFO.
Oh my
different company.
Yeah, I was gonna say not us.
Full disclaimer, different company.
Have you ever struggled with imposter syndrome through this? Because if people are like questioning, or you feel that they're thinking, that you're, do you ever internally you're like, oh my gosh, am I?
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, I feel like even in this new role, and it was funny, I was talking to Jenny, and I'm like, okay, I'm trying to figure out how to tell somebody what to do.
Yeah.
You tell me what to do all the time. You're so bossy. Like, you're so fucking bossy. Like, why don't you just tell that person what to do? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to come across as a bitch.
Yep.
And I don't want to come across as a micromanager. And so I'm trying to figure out, because normally, like, if I have a good relationship with you, I'm like,
you'll be
can
direct.
You do this?
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, oh, sorry, that sounded bossy. I say that to my husband. I say that to
What?
I say that to Dawn.
Her husband is he's my best friend.
But I struggle with that all the time.
Yeah.
And mostly internally thinking, how am I coming across?
Right.
Because I can be loud, I can be abrasive,
Sure.
I can be
We all can.
demanding. I have very high expectations of everyone in my life, including myself, including my husband and my daughter. And,
absolutely.
I'm working on that. Again, I need that therapist number.
It's true, though. It's hard. I mean, I know you and I talk about this all the time. It's like, how do you lead the way that a team member, like you said, it's different for everybody.
Right.
So how do you adjust that while still running as fast as you need to run? Like, you can't overcompensate by changing your strategies too much, right? Because sometimes people have to man up and just hear it. We're working on that with Pat right now.
Yeah. So I think I agree with what you said. There is a level of I hold myself to a lot of high standards, right? And sometimes it's crippling, right? Because you never think enough is enough, right? Because you're like, I can do better, and realizing sometimes you have to just pause and just be grateful and really be, what is the right word I'm looking for just accepting of how great of a job you did, right?
Yeah.
And
Just gratitude.
just gratitude itself.
You accomplished a lot.
Exactly. And I mean, some of the stuff you're working on, full disclosure, you're talking multi-million-dollar deals in multiple years, and if you mess up,
Right.
and if somebody doesn't catch it, you price something wrong,
Right.
you're signing a contract, you're not getting out of it.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
and so there's a lot of pressure on that. But has there been times that it's been hard for you to take a moment and just stop and see, like, measure the success yourself and self-reflect?
It's not hard. It's easy. I mean, I was telling somebody this story the other day. So it was my 8-year anniversary of Flagship.
That's so crazy.
It was Dawn's too, and he started just a few weeks before me. And my first day, we had a new sales leader at the time. He's no longer with us. And we had a whole brand new sales team that was kind of handpicked.
yeah.
And they brought everybody to Dallas, and we were having like a kickoff.
Oh, you gotta love the
meeting.
sales kickoffs.
And I remember it was my first day. I was so nervous. And Dawn said, we're going to the liquor store. We were doing like a casino night. They were bringing casino night to the office. And so we said, we're going to the liquor store. You have a car, because I live there. Let me get in. Let's go to the liquor store and get everything for tonight. So we're driving there, and he's like, oh, man, you are going to make all this money. And he threw out a figure at the time that I was like, this guy's so full of shit. I mean, I literally remember I called my mom, and I'm like, I don't know if I, made the right move. My boss is taking me to the liquor store. He's full of shit. Like, I don't even know. And lo and behold, 2 or 3 years later, I was making what he said I was going to make. And now here we are, even beyond my wildest dreams. So I'm almost in amazement that, like, what I thought was a very unsexy role and company and not really company, industry could actually be so lucrative. And it is sexy in my opinion. I mean, absolutely. I love aviation, and some of these B&I accounts that we're going after are huge Fortune 500 companies. That's so cool to say, oh, I went here, I toured Tesla, or I did, it's cool.
Gotta love it. Sorry for the background noise of IS2Say is now closing down.
Yeah, it's right. We paid extra not to shut our power off.
Yeah, there you go.
So we got enough power.
So, I mean, sitting down and being grateful, though, like that's a big part of, like, how I have to keep going, because if I didn't sit down and have those moments, I think I would have quit a long time ago. But it's also the support around you. Yeah. And, you talked about it takes an army, like even just, how with the family side. But do you feel that in your professional life that you've had to lean on people, or you had mentors, or do you like podcasts or read? Like, what is your tool to keep excelling the way that you excel?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I think for sure internally. I mean, for better or worse, Don has.
Yeah.
I can't even say this.
And we know it's coming. He's going to be commenting now.
He's
turned
been
up the volume in the
so
car right now.
pivotal in my career. But truly, and a good friend along the way. You know, I mean, he married me and my husband, and I really, truly feel like he's family. I had a great mentor, Mark Walker, in my old job at Grable that really kind of taught me sales 101 and overcoming objectives and all of those things that you need to need, you know. And so I feel like I've had great leadership and mentorship, and also just great friends. I mean, Jenny's become one of my very good friends. You guys have become good friends in the industry. You know, I call Pat all the time just to bitch or say, hey, what are you seeing out there?
Yeah, me too.
What are you know?
And then I grab all of that, and then I go to my therapist. It's like 2:30, 3, 4 with the therapist. Right? No, I think that's really cool. I mean, I've had multiple mentors. I've been lucky enough to have multiple mentors. A previous firm that I was with, my CEO was my mentor from when I was a kid. I've known the guy for 20-something years. He taught me a lot. He taught me a lot of things not to do, and then he also let me fail a lot. And he said so. He used to always say things to me that I wish I could get this vocab out of my mouth. He never said to me, "I told you so." And I'm learning to get that out of my vocab, right? Because he says it's not my point to prove to you that you were a failure or that you got it wrong. It's my job to just be there for you when you want to chat through it. And our chat's a little bit different because we're from the New York, Newton, Boston area, so like there's a lot of F-bombs and stuff dropped in
Fuck off,
there. Right? You know, we'll tell each other F off at 9 in the morning, and then at 3:30, I'm asking him if you're still on for that tea time. You know, it was just a completely different world. Nothing was personal, it was business. But I have a lot of respect for people, and I think that once you find someone that can give you that mentorship and that knowledge transfer from what their experiences have been, and then you take it and run with it and start interpreting your way and doing things, it's very powerful.
It is. And then you can then in result mentor other people.
Right.
So do you feel that you're mentoring, you know, your teammates or anybody in your life at this point?
I mean, I feel like I'm trying. I definitely feel like sometimes it's in a advertent way, you know?
Yeah, it's not like you're sitting down and having these like really deep one-on-one.
Your career.
You're the guru of Flagship.
I do, you know, I see, we had that big sales and marketing meeting last week in Dallas, and I see a lot of potential in some of these new kids. I say kids, they're 25 years old.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just think, oh my gosh, let me get my hands on you, you know, in a good way.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I see people who are so, okay.
Let's edit that out.
All right.
All right, you know what she meant.
I was not letting that one slide.
But I think, you know, this next generation sometimes gets a lot of heat for being lazy or being too reliant on technology, or, you know, not have an understanding of like what real life work looks like. And so it's refreshing to see some people who are hungry, who want to work, who have an understanding of what it means to be in business, of dressing properly and showing up when you say you're going to, of interacting with people and looking someone in the eye and shaking their hand professionally. I mean, there's a lot of little things that go into making you successful in business besides actual aptitude of
doing the job. Right. Absolutely. And I think, I mean, if you think about it, our generation, we got that same slack where everyone thought that, you know, millennials, you guys are lazy, you know, you get participation trophies, everything, you know, and then we turned around, showed them different, and now it's the next generation to thank God the heat's off, the heat's off us
exactly, now. No, I agree with that.
Well, Courtney, thank you so much. I mean, one last question I have, and then I'll throw it to Pat if you got
I got
any.
rapid questions. I never told her about either.
I never told her about either. Is I like to ask people, do you have any piece of advice that you would give to other people who are climbing their way to the top, or, you know, about to be an executive?
I would say be open to things outside of your comfort zone. Be open to industries or roles or, you know, companies or people, challenges, things that, you know, are going to push you outside of your comfort zone, because that's the only way that you're ever going to grow.
I love that. That's beautiful. I wish you had good advice like that.
Your
advice is questionable.
Is don't take advice.
Yeah. Have 2 Tito's instead of 1.
Have 2 Tito's and you'll figure it out. It's not just a joke. So we're going to play a little game.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you 10 questions.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Quick answers.
Okay.
Nothing crazy. Favorite hobby?
Drinking wine.
The truth comes out.
Oh, I don't have hobbies anymore.
It's not a confession.
This turned into her therapy session.
Sport.
Football.
Favorite team?
Aggies.
Favorite food?
Cookies.
What type of cookies?
I mean, oh gosh, mint Oreos are really a top favorite.
Okay. Favorite? Well, everybody knows you live in Dallas, but so favorite restaurant in Dallas?
Mexican, probably Macero.
Okay.
Favorite city to travel to?
Ooh, San Diego.
Least favorite city?
You guys are gonna kill me.
Atlanta.
It's favorite airport.
Yeah,
not the
that's.
city.
I mean,
The
that is
airport's
fair.
Honestly, least favorite airport, Charlotte.
Yeah.
Sorry, Charlotte people
Charlotte's
listening.
been
I want to service your airport. I just don't like flying in there.
It's big and it's like poorly designed in a weird way.
Yeah.
I don't fly American, but when I do, I go through
Yeah,
Charlotte, and I have the worst luck. I land at A, and my next
that's
flight's at E. I'm like, guys, can you guys come in just a little
I don't
closer?
have to connect very much ever flying out of DFW. So if I do, it's going through Charlotte, and it's the same situation.
Yeah.
And of course, you have 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
What's next for Courtney? Personally.
No more babies, so don't think about that. Nothing, just kind of enjoying where we're at. Like, I love the 3.5-year-old stage. I feel like I'm out of the baby phase.
Right.
We get to go and do fun stuff. She loves to travel.
Oh, that's awesome.
So kind of planning trips every quarter and, doing Disney. We're going to Colorado in a few weeks.
Awesome.
And, yeah.
What's next for Courtney professionally?
Oh,
Taking over the world.
Hopefully growing this B&I and aviation team. Growing both in revenue and headcount and potentially, taking on more sectors and having, developing people underneath me to become VPs and manage people and, ultimately maybe coming for Dawn's job.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun,
We
dun.
got to leave it
At
at that.
that.
Mic drop.
Boom.
Dawn
And the
just-
next episode,
Dawn was
told.
driving and just swerved into a wall real
next
quick.
episode, we have Dawn.
Well, thank you so much, Courtney. Your journey is inspirational to a lot of people, and congratulations on all your success. You deserve every ounce of it. You've
Thank
worked
you
your
guys
butt
so
off,
much.
and it's so well deserved.
Well, thank you guys for your friendship
Yeah, of
and
course.
mentorship and work references and help at the airports. I appreciate all of it.
We got you.
Can't accept the loss, I'm hard-headed. There's a little bit of madness to my method. Many falling off that fine line that I'm treading. I risk anything to be great, and I'm not letting nobody rob me of my victory. Number one, that's what I'm meant to be. When by any means, only thing that makes sense to me, I can make nice or make history. I got that dog in me, yeah. Turn me up.